Where I come from, you don't want to talk too much about politics or religion. But in the South here, it's like, hi, my name is Jason. What church do you go to? But it's disclosing information about yourself is really an essential component of developing any sort of relationship, whether it be a romantic relationship, a friendship, working with a colleague, etc., etc., etc. So self-disclosure is a huge aspect of interpersonal communication. And oftentimes when we think about disclosing, we also think about the breadth, how much we disclose to other people, but also the depth, how significant or important is the information that we are offering. And then why do we generally self-disclose? There's lots of different reasons. Catharsis, obviously, I want to get this off my chest. Reciprocity, oftentimes we want to disclose when other people disclose to us, or we disclose so other people will disclose to us. Hi, I'm from Oklahoma. Hi, I'm from South Carolina. Hi, I'm from Mars. I'm from Venus, etc. I hate John Gray, by the way. That stuff is crazy stupid. Self-clarification. So if somebody, you can say more information. Well, what I really meant, or let me tell you where I'm really coming from. Self-validation. I'm good. I'm awesome. So people go, yeah, you are. You rock. Identity management, as you already know, so we manage what we say to other people to give off certain impressions, or impression management is basically the same thing. Relational management and enhancement, obviously, how we, going through a relationship, the more information that we offer tends to grow the relationship, enhance it depending on the situation. Social control, and so actually we can manipulate as well by maybe self-disclosing or disclosing something from other people what they told us. That happens all the time. So basically, it's important. It's an important aspect of basic interpersonal communication. Are there rules? Yes, there are basic rules, and some of these rules, all this information that I'm getting, is from a book called Looking Out, Looking In by Adler, Proctor, and Town, 11th edition. And it is an interpersonal communication textbook. And so basically, all this stuff is, most interpersonal communication theories are all about face-to-face or FDF communication. And that's one of the reasons why this book that we have, our book, is trying to apply all this stuff now to an online or CMC setting. But generally, when you're thinking about self-disclosing to others, is the person important to you? We tend to disclose more information to people that we deem as more important to us. It depends on the situation. What about the amount and type of self-disclosure? Is it appropriate to the situation? Basically, we don't want to say too much too soon. That's usually the rule, and we don't want to give too much personal information too soon either. I'm laughing because I'm thinking of an example as I'm talking here. I went and took Finnegan to the vets last week. Just for a checkup, and this elderly woman walked up to me. She was on a cane. She had a cane, and very sweet old woman. And she said, "That's your beautiful dog." And I said, "Well, thank you very much." And then the next thing she said is, "I had a stroke last week." I was like, "I'm sorry, but what you gonna?" So. Is the risk reasonable? So is it I mean, that's just sort of common sense. I mean, do we risk the giving this information? That's going back to the risk-benefit stuff. Is it reasonable to tell people that you went to school at the University of Arkansas? I still get in trouble for, running around and wearing my LSU and Arkansas stuff. I got my bachelor's and my master's at Arkansas, and people look at me like I'm Satan. Thank goodness I don't have any Clemson clothes. Is disclosure relevant to the situation at hand? Again, sort of going back to my example, I'm always amazed. You go to Hardee's or something like that, and I would like a burger, and by the way, some sort of weird self-disclosure. When I once was in Hardee's, and a woman ordered a Big Mac, and they said, "Well, no, ma'am, we don't make Big Macs here." She goes, "Well, can you make one for me?" Okay. Will the effect be constructive? That is, do you think the information that you are offering ultimately will be constructive to grow or maintain the relationship in some way? Is it clear and understandable? Particularly, you want people to understand where you're coming from, and you want to disclose effectively whatever it is that you're disclosing. It can be easy as simple as where you're from, or what's your favorite band. And then is it reciprocated? We tend to again, we disclose so other people will disclose to us, but it can be also very, very uncomfortable depending on the situation if somebody discloses something to us and then we don't reciprocate. So the general rule of thumb is that we tend to reciprocate, depending again on the situation. We usually don't just say, "That's nice, leave me alone," though sometimes we want to. So there are just sort of very general rules about self-disclosure. So given all that, and by the way, in my, a lot of these rules are just sort of cultural rules that are common sense stuff. When I haven't taught interpersonal communication in a very long time, but when I used to teach it, I taught it at LSU, and I think I taught it once at Columbia College. I taught it at Wesleyan College as well when I was there. But I had this activity, sort of like creating a Saturday Night Live skit where you had a person who had he or she was not very good at self-disclosing, so just sort of broke all the rules. So you would give all this information to somebody that you just met, or all this type of stuff. It was really, really funny. But I think you probably get, there are certain norms, and people break the norms all the time. But it's something to sort of think about, because I think we can apply some of this stuff to online or CMC communication, or CMC, which it has communication in it. Even though a lot of this theory stuff in that particular book that I just showed you, the interpersonal communication book, grew out of the research for face-to-face communication. So, given that, this is what our authors do. I'm on slide 12 now. Back to the CPM theory and how it impacts self-disclosure. And there's several little subsections here. The first subsection is how it influences our decision criteria and privacy disclosure choices. And so there's several then subcategories under there, although they don't sort of label it like that. There's things to concern, or things to think about in terms of higher or lower self-consciousness. So basically, high self-consciousness is that you have sort of both high private self-conscious and high public self-consciousness. So private self-consciousness is how thoughtful you are about your internal thoughts, thinking about them, and then private self-consciousness is this idea of really thinking about how other people are going to react to the things that we say. So, as I say, the next bullet point, higher, generally means you spend more time thinking about how your internal thoughts, how you want to offer them, and how you want them to be disclosed, and how they are going to be interpreted. And so there's a lot of more specific information in here that I'll let you read. But I found it sort of interesting because there's, well, the bottom of page 27 has tons of stuff on, well, that's gender. But what was pretty interesting is that when it comes to blogging, it says, this is the middle of page 26, bloggers with higher public and private self-conscious level employ more of a public orientation toward the management of blogging disclosure and privacy management practices, disclosing more and seeking a wider array of individuals to provide feedback about their thoughts than individuals with less self-consciousness. And there's more stuff in there about that. So I thought that was sort of counterintuitive. But basically, I think the takeaway there is that people who think about this stuff more go through this entire process of managing privacy a little bit better. And so they would be more careful about what they offer and then be more interested in getting feedback, because then they can control sort of the public information as well. So part of this is this idea of self-consciousness, higher or lower self-consciousness. The second little bit here, and I've tried to bold these a little bit, is issues of self-monitoring and a concern for appropriateness. That is something I need to work on. But again, it's pretty close to self-consciousness, but self-monitoring is how well you gauge or monitor your own communication. And then concern for appropriateness is obviously, trying to have decorum and acting in a so-called professional way or not, depending on the situation. And by the way, another abbreviation, we have CFA now, which stands for concern for appropriateness. So some people, I don't care. I'm going to be who I want to be. I'm going to say something that's sarcastic or inappropriate just because I don't care. And other people are much more self-monitoring and care much more deeply about communicating a way that they perceive as appropriate given the situation. And then all of this sort of stuff, again, online or face-to-face, impacts how other people see us, and part of the social identity formation. Middle of 27 is pretty interesting when it comes to the whole thing about self-monitoring, and also a little bit of implication about self-consciousness. It's basically a summary, and that's why I like this little part here. And I'll always, in my little lectures, try to read a little bit and tell you where it's coming from, because basically I'm telling you those are the areas that you need to highlight, even though no exams and no quizzes or anything like that, just for your own edification, because education is important. From this body of research, an initial set of conditions emerge that serve as online decision criteria that drive the way that privacy rules are developed, ultimately guiding choices about CMC interactions. Thus, decisions about privacy rules to use are predicted on the degree to which people are private or public in their orientation to self-consciousness, whether they engage in high or low self-monitoring, and what their private-public orientation is to behavioral appropriateness when interacting online. So I know that's sort of academic-y writing, But it's basically just saying that these are ways that we can think about privacy management